Welcome to the Happiness Matters podcast, where we'll explore happiness at work and show you how to coach yourself to be happier there and more successful too, no matter what.
Welcome everyone. Welcome to our Happiness Matters coaching journey. I'm Julia Seal, your coach, and thank you so much for joining me today as we practice coaching ourselves to be happy and successful no matter what. If you're new to the podcast, we've been exploring the science of happiness over the last few episodes, looking into various formulas of happiness from the world's academics. So far, we've looked at the first, positive psychology's leading model, that of Martin Seligman, called PERMA. Then we looked at how the University of Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center has pulled together all the studies in positive psychology to create their view on the science of happiness. And last week we looked at Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar's SPIRE framework of whole being happiness. This is now the fourth model, and the last academic framework we're going to consider, well, for now. This one is also slightly different. Up until now, we've been looking at happiness overall. Today, we're looking at the science of happiness at work. So firstly, how are all of you doing this week, after another week of isolation and lockdown around the world? Please do listen to my earlier episode on how to coach yourself through COVID-19, either how to manage your spiraling negative thoughts or increasing anxiety, or if you've got a grip on your emotions and your mind, then how to best use this time to grow yourself to the next level, to step up and evolve yourself through self-coaching. And if you do want to coach with me on COVID-19 or on your midlife happiness and success, you can book a free mini session with me on our website, Happiness-Matters.coach. I hope today's episode will help you too through these times. The early novelty of being confined to our homes and working from home and not being able to go out and work is actually starting to wear off for many of us. And we're turning our minds to the economy, our jobs, and our next salary check. So my dear listeners, I am recording this episode over the Easter weekend with a very heavy heart. My darling giant schnauzer Lupin died last week, totally unexpectedly and very suddenly. Since our lockdown in South Africa, we've not been allowed to go outside and walk our dogs, so I've been letting my two very big, very energetic boys out to run in the open area opposite our house, and they take themselves off for a 5-minute morning sniff to read the dog newspapers, and Lupin must have eaten something poisonous. I wanted to share this with you. I know many of you enjoy hearing about my dogs, but deciding whether to share this today got me thinking about happiness no matter what. Firstly, about the split that we've created between work and home, or work and life, and the endless talk of the work-life balance. There's this sense that we should leave home behind when we arrive at work, and we should leave work at the front door when we arrive home. And somehow we should be successfully navigating the fine line of balance. Of course, in my consulting work and employee engagement, we know that this is impossible. You cannot ask someone who's had something awful happen at home to show up for work enthusiastic, motivated, and positive. And in just the same way, it's extremely difficult to leave work behind, especially if it's urgent or stressful, and to show up for our families as if we don't have a care in the world. So while this episode is about the science of happiness at work, please remember we are whole beings, and all of us, our whole being comes with us wherever we go. We cannot be happy and successful at work if we're not happy and successful at home too. No matter what happiness is whole being happiness in all dimensions of our lives. Then secondly, thinking about happiness no matter what and how it's not all about positive emotions. We are whole beings, and happiness at work is about embracing the sadness and happiness of life, living the reality of life as 50-50. The happiness wisdom concept of life as 50-50, yin-yang, is so poignant today with Lupin, and also as we watch the COVID-19 deaths mount. It's not fake, smiley happiness, and let's just think positive thoughts. It's about embracing the 50-50, the yin-yang. It's about the size of my grief matching the size of my love for him. It's about gratitude for his life and the joy of loving him. And it's about honoring our time with him and what he brought us. For me, he was my little heart on legs. So to my Lupin, yoga buddy, meditation teacher, and darling soul dog. So, for the science of happiness at work, we are going back to the University of Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center. We looked at their overall framework of the science of a meaningful life back in episode 1.36. You'll remember we explored positive emotions, social connections, and empathy, also cooperation, and I introduced you to a coaching tool to help you tap into feelings of awe. As I've done in previous episodes on all the science of happiness frameworks, I'll give you an overview of the 4 elements making up this framework, and then I'm going to dive into one of the dimensions. And I've chosen this week's focus for those of us who are working from home at the moment, remote working. Perhaps you're loving it, and we'll talk to that, but perhaps you're finding it more difficult to focus with the endless feed of new pandemic stories, or you've got kids at home who want more attention, or your young adults are back and playing music way too loud. I hope that today's insights, combined with what we learned last week about coaching ourselves using beginner's mind, will set you up for a refreshing way to view your working week this week. The Greater Good Science Center defines happiness at work with 4 concepts, as I said, 4 pillars: purpose, engagement, resilience, and kindness. These make up the acronym PERK. So just like we've got to know PERMA and SPIRE, now we have PERK. As they say, perk up your happiness at work, or make happiness your company's best perk. So PERK is a framework on how to boost your feelings of satisfaction, purpose, connection, and engagement at work. And it seems simple when you consider it's only 4 pillars. But just like the other frameworks, it addresses multiple ways to strengthen your happiness. It's a very robust way of looking at our happiness at work, at a personal level, at a social level, and at a more structural, systemic, organizational level. The researchers define happiness at work in much the same way as their overall framework, the science of a meaningful life. Feeling an overall sense of enjoyment at work, being able to gracefully handle setbacks, connecting amicably with colleagues, co-workers, clients, and customers, and knowing that your work, your contribution matters to you, your company, and beyond. Let's look at the elements of PERK: purpose, engagement, resilience, and kindness. Purpose means knowing that your work matters to you, your organization, and to the world. It's about your belief that you personally make valuable contributions to others or to society, and that you find this contribution personally meaningful. Engagement is an expression of our genuine thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, our whole self that we bring to work. And more specifically, it's a positive, fulfilling, work-related state of mind where you feel a strong sense of vigor towards, dedication to, and absorption in work activities. Resilience is being able to handle adversity with grace, to face challenges and recover from setbacks, be accountable for failures and resolve conflict at work, and you bounce back from difficulties in a healthy and constructive way. Kindness includes being genuinely nice to other people, forming strong, supportive social connections at work that help us collaborate, and interacting in trusting, inclusive, and cooperative ways with work colleagues. I studied PERK with the Greater Good Science Centre back in 2018. They also include mindfulness and resilience to stress, empathy, and emotional intelligence. As we've done with our earlier happiness formulas, we can look at our work happiness as a whole against the PERK model to ask ourselves how balanced we are across these dimensions of our working lives. Are we creating happiness for ourselves by nurturing each of these areas, or do we have gaps that are obvious to us already in purpose, engagement, resilience, and kindness? Many of you might know the coaching tool, the Wheel of Life Balance Assessment. It was originally created by Paul Meyer, front-runner in the self-improvement industry since the 1960s. And it's undergone many interpretations since then. And we can apply it here to our happiness at work too. Basically, it's a visual representation of your view of your current life balance, mapped on a circle, and PERK are the spokes of a wheel. And the question to ask yourself is, how well can the wheel of your life turn? How balanced are you across these dimensions of your working life? And are you creating happiness for yourself by paying attention to each of these areas? So if all areas in your working life are balanced, then the wheel of your life runs smoothly. But if one or more areas are out of balance, then your wheel gives for an uncomfortable, bumpy ride, perhaps even dangerous or even non-functioning. I will put some links in the show notes for you so you can read more about using this coaching tool, the Wheel of Life. I also like the idea, especially with PERK, of thinking of your life, your working life, as a chair with 4 legs. If your life is in balance, then all 4 legs are equal and your chair is stable and comfortable. If one leg goes out of balance, your chair will become unstable and wobbly, but it's still functional. Then, when 2 legs or more are at different lengths, the chair cannot support you at all, and you possibly can't even function and end up on the floor. These are just 2 useful ways for you to do a quick assessment on your happiness at work with PERK. We're now going to spend our coaching time together on the construct, the chair leg, the wheel spoke E for engagement. Engagement is a word we hear quite often at work nowadays, or perhaps I do, since I've been involved in the employee engagement field since its early days, more than 15 years now. I remember introducing it to executives and employees with a joke that it wasn't about recruitment or even a marriage service at work. Let's now look at what we mean exactly when we're talking about it, not in terms of a tool that companies and managers can leverage for productivity and market competitiveness, but what it means to us personally, and what insights we can find to help us coach ourselves through our currently new normal work from home scenarios and our longer term happiness and success. As I said earlier, engagement is an expression of our genuine thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that we bring to work, our whole being. It's about showing up and applying yourself in a sincere and dedicated way that ultimately leaves you feeling fulfilled by your work. And the best way to think about it is as a positive, fulfilling, work-related state of mind where you feel a strong sense of vigor towards, dedication to, and absorption in work activities. So if I was to ask you right now if you're feeling engaged at work, how would you answer this? Do you generally enjoy your work? Are you part of the decisions about what, when, and how you do things at work? How often do you feel curious or deeply immersed and lose track of time while working? Do you feel like you can be effective and get things done? These are all ways to assess your engagement. And I'm sure you will have been involved in your company's efforts to increase engagement, especially if you're in a leadership position. And you might well have been doing this for your team too. Things like adding playfulness, creativity, and levity into the working day, giving your team members and getting for yourself more ownership over the day-to-day schedule, especially now so many of us are working from home. Professional development and opportunities for learning and growth included in your daily work, even job crafting. So many ways to address our engagement in our jobs. What I want to focus in on is the aspect that is entirely in your control, where you don't need your company to set up structures or your boss to make provision for. It's engagement as flow. Flow is about absorption in your work activities. It's an immersive, lose track of time experience when you're in the zone. The best moments in our lives are not the passive, receptive, relaxing times. The best moments usually occur if a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile, or a state of joy, creativity, and total involvement in which problems seem to disappear and there's an exhilarating feeling of transcendence. This is according to Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who originally identified and researched the construct of flow in the positive psychology field back in 1975. He called it flow, as in his research interviews, participants described their experiences using the metaphor of a water current carrying them along with it. You might remember Csikszentmihalyi, the Hungarian-American psychologist, from our episode on evolving ourselves through our self-coaching, episode 1.25, Your Next Step Evolution. In that episode, we talked about his views on becoming an active, conscious part of our own evolutionary process and how it can give our lives meaning and joy, and profoundly impact the human species going forward. Something we could really revisit while we adjust to whatever this new normal is post-pandemic. In his book on happiness, Flow, The Psychology of Happiness, he explores everything about flow, from the autotelic experience and the autotelic personality, people who tend to experience more flow naturally, to cultural experiences of flow, and what is happening in our minds and bodies when we're in flow. And of course, how we can shift our happiness levels, our happiness at work, by introducing flow into our lives. And he's identified 8 characteristics of flow. Let's see if you can identify with any of them and see where flow is showing up in your life, your happiness at work right now. Think about these as I read them out. Complete concentration on the task. Clarity of goals and reward in mind and immediate feedback. Transformation of time, time speeding up or time slowing down. The experience is intrinsically rewarding. It's effortlessness and ease. There's a balance between challenge and skills. Actions and awareness are merged, losing self-conscious rumination. That inner self-talk of ours. And there is a feeling of control over the task. Now, of course, your company and your manager can support you feeling flow in your working day. They could be supporting a move away from, and I really love this description that I saw on social media, hyper busy, multitasking, always available, device, notification, laden, meeting, clogged schedules. We cannot experience flow or even the possibility of flow if you're constantly being interrupted or if you're getting easily distracted. We now know that our minds can attend to only a certain amount of information at a time, about 120 bits of information per second. It sounds like a lot, but actually simple daily tasks take up quite a lot of this. Just decoding speech takes up about 60 bits of information per second. So you can see how difficult it is to concentrate deeply on something if we're constantly being interrupted by our colleagues, open plan offices, our mobiles, or even our kids as we learn to work from home. So yes, to increase your flow, and if you're a manager, increasing your team's ability to experience flow, is to create some space for this experience of happiness at work. Some uninterrupted periods for deep work at work. And of course, to give employees their downtime when they get home so they can relax and refresh themselves without getting the out of office hours emails or WhatsApp messages from you at 8 at night. This is called the right to disconnect, and it's a proposed human right. In some countries, it now even exists in law, and various companies worldwide have already made it policy. In France, the El Khomri law was passed to uphold the rights of employees to disconnect from work emails, mobile calls, and messages outside of office hours. Similar laws exist in Italy and the Philippines. While Germany doesn't yet have a law, many German companies have adopted similar practices, including stopping their email servers from sending emails to the mobile phones of employees between certain hours. I'll include some links for you to read more about this in our episode show notes. Remember, you can find the show notes, listen to all past episodes, and download all my free coaching tools on Happiness-Matters.coach. Now, since happiness is really our business, and who wants to put our happiness on hold until our governments pass a law or our companies write a new policy, we can create flow for ourselves too. I've got 2 different ways of looking at it for you: a simple quick tips action list and a self-coaching tool. The first is from Zen Habits, a blog about implementing Zen habits into daily life. And for getting yourself easily into the flow state, you can choose work you love, choose an important task, make sure it's challenging but not too hard, find your quiet time and your peak productivity time and combine them. So like for me, mine is recording this podcast at 5:30 in the morning. Clear away distractions. Learn to focus on that task for as long as possible. The next way of getting into flow and creating our happiness at work for ourselves is a coaching tool that I introduced in last week's episode on whole being, when we were self-coaching our curiosity in order to increase our happiness and success. This coaching tool is Shoshin, or beginner's mind. So here I want to build on what we learned about beginner's mind last week and apply it to how we can create flow for ourselves, no matter what we're doing. So not just flow when we're doing work we love or challenging work, but anything in your job, any task, those you love and those you don't, even the ones you procrastinate over. You can create flow for yourself with beginner's mind. Here's your happy and successful no matter what concept coming in here. So to recap, Shoshin is an attitude of openness, eagerness, and lack of preconceptions when studying a subject, even when studying at an advanced level, just as a beginner would. Zen Master Shunryu Suzuki says in his book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, in the beginner's state of mind, there are many possibilities, but in the experts, there are few. Beginner's mind is about dropping our expectations and preconceived ideas about something and seeing things with an open mind, fresh eyes, just like a beginner. We become judgment-free, open, curious, available, and present. It's not about not being an expert. I said this last week, so don't make this mistake. It's wonderful to have the skill of an expert, all our professional knowledge. But it's about our attitude, our mindset. Do we have an expert's mindset or the beginner's mindset? Our ability to experience flow at work depends on it. Our happiness and success at work depends on it. I love this saying by Albert Einstein about the beginner's mindset. Everybody knows that some things are simply impossible, until somebody who doesn't know that makes them possible. Or Marcel Proust, early 1900s French novelist, saying, "The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes." Last week, I offered you 2 or 3 ways to cultivate the beginner's mindset. The most powerful one starting with mindfulness practices. Now, mindfulness is a very popular topic right now, and too big for us to get into detail here. I will be spending time on mindfulness in our upcoming Series 2 on brain management. Today, I want to encourage you to start practicing mindfulness using the fun suggestion of treating every day like your birthday and applying this heightened awareness, everything is special feeling, to any small task you take today in your work, whether it's just a dull, boring one that you really don't want to do, or it's something you love. Practice coaching yourself, seeing if you can transform the activity into a flow experience by using beginner's mind and mindfulness. I would love to know how you get on with doing this. Please do share. You can send your comments easily on Ask Julia on our website, Happiness-Matters.coach. I've been practicing beginner's mind in creating this podcast episode as if I've done it all for the very first time, sitting down with paper and pen to draw my big circles and swoopy lines to get my thoughts in order, brainstorming the angle and focus areas I want to go into, connecting my laptop to my huge screen overlooking the garden, and having my morning coffee and cream. It was a lovely exercise to do, especially during this sad time. Flow has been a gift for me today, and I hope it will be a gift for you in your work this week. I'm quite tickled by the idea that it's Wear Pyjamas to Work Day on Thursday. And thinking of you all practicing flow as you work from home in your pajamas. Remember, one of the ways to increase engagement, the E in PERK, is to add playfulness, creativity, and levity into your working day. I'm already wondering if my own pajamas are suitable for a post on LinkedIn. Why not join me there? On LinkedIn, you can find me at Julia Seal, and on Facebook at Happiness-Matters.coach. Also, please remember to share this podcast, Happiness Matters, with your colleagues who might enjoy learning how to coach themselves to happiness and success at work through menopause and into a newly evolved midlife. Next week, we'll move away from the academic models of happiness and success and look at the work being done in this area by the world's leading management consultancies, the happiness models developed for businesses, and what we can learn here about our self-coaching and how we're defining happiness and success for ourselves. And finally, may you be happy, may you be free. There is no better time to do this coaching together. Bye for now, wishing you a week of special flow moments in these difficult times.
Thanks for joining us on this Happiness Matters podcast. Do join us again here next week on Tuesday. You can subscribe to this series at Apple Podcasts on iTunes, or you can sign up for it on our website, Happiness-Matters.coach. That's Happiness-Matters.coach. COACH. Also, you can join our conversation on Facebook by following us there. Our Facebook page is also Happiness-Matters.coach.